Michelin Man. Alright, well here we are in the Jeep section. And I'm looking for a PCM to show you jokers how to make a relay box that doesn't suck. It isn't $40,000. How much is the other one?
30 for the junkyard version.
30 for the junkyard version? And the other one's like $400, something like that. Anyway, so I'm gonna find Cherokee here in a second. Alright, so we are in 1993-ish Cherokee. We're gonna have a really basic fuse relay box. And all you do is take the darn thing out. All you need is a Leatherman and a little bit of grout work, and you cut that off. And what you have to do is leave some of this wire out. Don't cut it off so short, because we're gonna use some of the stock wiring when we make it like we want. So just keep that in mind. Also, if you want to be fancy, you can keep and pull the actual factory bracket here for the fuse box. But that's just personal preference. You can mount it however you want. Okay folks, when you pull your relay box from the junkyard, it's going to look something like this. And where you're going to get this thing is from 1991 to 1995 X-shades, the first ones when Chrysler took over. And when you pop this cover off, you're going to see a whole mess of relays, maxi fuses, and mini fuses. And what we're going to show you how to do is to wire this up to where the point where these relays are pre-wired with power going to them, all grounded and all fused, ready to go, so you don't have a mess of this crap hogging up your engine bay. Alright folks, so a relay, when wired up correctly, sounds and looks something like this. Now how to get there. The first thing you want to do is you want to run a dedicated ground for your relay. And that's going to be pin 85, which is going here to your right, to the chassis ground, to the battery ground, whichever one you prefer. Next you're going to add the power to the relay, which is going to send power to your load or light or whatever have you. And that's going to be pin 30 here on the bottom. And that's going to go right to the positive side of your battery, obviously fused to some extent. Next, you're going to wire up your light, your load, if you will, and that's going to be pin 87 up top here. And that's going to go right to the positive side of your load. And then from your load, you're going to also run a ground to the chassis or the battery, whichever you prefer. Lastly is going to be your pin 86, which is the power from your switch. And when you do it all correctly, you're going to send power to this pin, which is going to activate your relay. And it looks like this. Voila. Barney style. These are these mini fuses, or maxi fuses. And that was definitely in there. Well, God dang it, Bobby! Shit! Just to start throwing things.
I just want to do social media things with my friend.
Here's the fun part. You take the back off this guy, and you get this. A bird's nest. Now, all these gigantic wires up here on the top are wired to your maxi fuses. So if you have any really big ticket items that are getting a lot of amperage, let's say a high power radio, onboard air, a subwoofer, you can wire them up to these guys right here. Because what happens is, when you attach this wire right to your battery, and these are already pre-wired, all you have to do is add a maxi fuse, and this guy, or any one of these, can have power. On the bottom, you have the back side of your relays, which is just like a bunch of these guys all wired in a row, nice and neat. So what you do is you wire all your grounds together in one and ground them out on your chassis. You take from these mini fuses on the other side and you apply power to your supply, which is pin 30 down here, and then you wire up your load for each one of them. So let's say you have each one of these is attached to a light. You take this last one and wire it to your light, the power side of it, or positive. And lastly, you add the power from your switch to pin 86 on the side. And you jumble it up, wire it all nicely together, you flip it over, you can have all those accessories wired in one single relay box. Now there are a bunch of videos on actually how to take this darn thing apart and wire the jumpers together, and if you need to do that, by all means, there's 100 of them out there. But we just wanted to show our take on how we use this thing for our purposes. Okay, so here's my Tacoma, and I've got all these this relay here. I've got all these inline fuses, and these wires just kind of strewn about here, and I personally can't stand that. Here's an example of what it should look like. So this is my relay box that I simply put right next to my stock one, and when I pop it off, here we go. All these relays are pre-wired, so if I want to add an accessory, I simply add another mini fuse to put the next one on the line. And then my max fuse is right here. This is my subwoofer. This is my radio, and then this is the max fuse to my switch panel. And look, there are no random wires hanging around everywhere. Just a very clean install. I want to explain something before we move on any further on how to actually wire your switches for your relay box. So instead of doing the old trick of sending power to one of your switches and then from your switch to your relay box one at a time over and over and over again, there's a much easier way. So you run one dedicated fused, mind you, power to your switch panel, and you have it go to all of them using the same power for all your switches. So all your switches have power. And then you can use very thin gauge wire from each of your switches to go to the relay box. Now by thin gauge I mean really thin, in size wire. So instead of using 10 gauge wire for every relay, you don't have to do that, because a relay, the one we use, only uses 0.16 amps, so you can use very thin gauge, such as the gauge in Cat 5 cable, which comes with 8 wires on the inside that are colored green, orange, blue, and brown. And also we have white, green, white, orange, white, blue, and white, brown. So that's enough wires for 8 different switches, all in the same small cord. Now what you do is you separate these again, and let's say your first relay you want to be colored or activated by the green wire, and you take your little butt-end connector and you put these together and you put that to your first relay, and so on and so forth. That way you don't have a bunch of wires going through your firewall, and it keeps a nice, very clean setup. And this stuff is pretty cheap from any hardware store, IT guy, or your next door neighbor has a bunch left over from when the cable guy came through. And that way you can wire up all your switches, and when you add more and more accessories, you don't have to even bother with the switch. You can just add one. So there you have it. Action. So here you are on the race Jeep, per se. And if you take a look up here, this is my switch panel. This is what controls that relay box. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 switches, and they are all pre-wired in, ready to go for everything I want. So this is my bumper light, it's my LED up front. These are my blinky blink race lights back there. This is my aux fan. And I'm never going to have to touch this again, because all I have to do is add a load down in the switch panel and this just stays intact. Your load is ready to be pushed in. Nope, stop it. That's just sick sounding. In closing, the relay box from the Cherokee is one of the best ways to wire accessories onto your Jeep. It's safer, it's more organized, and it's easier in the long run, because once you have the relay box, adding accessories becomes extremely easy. Now, the best things about it are the fact that it's cheap. It's 30 bucks, and if you've never bought an S-Pod, they're really not that cheap. around like what, $200 mark,
Yeah.
if not more. Quite a bit ahead in that beer. I'm sorry. Go ahead, don't spill it.
Well, that is perfection.
I understand. So, what we gotta do.
Okay, continue with the show.
In closing, the Cherokee relay box is a great way to add accessories to your Jeep. Because once you do have it wired in, all you have to do is add one power wire to whatever you're using. So your light, your onboard air system, and you're ready to go. It's a lot safer because I've seen some of your wiring out there. And yes, I'm talking about you. And Jeeps are wired poorly from factory. And you aren't helping with your 27 power wires wired directly to your battery, hanging out with no fuses and improper gauge wire. So this is going to help you a lot, I swear.
What he said.
Yeah.
All of it.
So here's to relays and relay boxes and proper wiring.
Here, here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of foam.
Ready?
We have some hilarious outtakes right now.
What the heck's a JK doing here?
Won't move cotton.
Yeah. Must be fixing his XJ. You gonna park there? Well, there we go. Perfect.